greetings and devotion from us. When we say unto you that the ghost of Halloween is still with the world, that the recalcitrant energies released by them are still affecting humanity even today, we speak truly, and we say unto you that if it were not for the grace of the angelic host and the power of light and grace to remove this horror from the world before it becomes a literal chamber of horrors for the world, I think that humanity might well pass from the scene for the sake of their escapades in darkness, in which, unfortunately, even the little children are participants, made so by their parents without understanding and without realization. Now I come to you today to commend many of you whose devotion is extraordinary. I come also to speak unto many of you to beware lest some man take your crown. For I tell you of a truth, the light of the law is with all still. It is the manifestation of our great reality. It is the sun of our hope, one and all. Therefore let all understand it clearly, and let the great continents of the air, of the mind be opened, and let men realize the light of their purpose, the light of our purpose, the light of the thundering purpose that comes from the farthest corners of the universe and is ever omnipresent with man, whether he realizes it or not. Light is light, and darkness is darkness. And truly we can say that never shall they twain be united. But we can assure you that light banishes darkness, pushes it back, and becomes reality, where no reality existed before. For this cause did we come into the world. For this cause did the Christ manifest long ago. For this cause does the beauty of hope expand itself. For this cause do we express constantly to you far greater than you realize, and in greater depth than you are able to realize at a given moment in time. Yet I am certain that our words, cherished as they are, and our vibratory action will become the beautiful ladder beneath your feet on which you can safely climb into those concepts of reality that are as blazing as the noontide. And I think also, as I come to you this day, of how I may enhance your loveliness, give you greater awareness, and banish your darkness. Truly, I would, if I could, banish it all. But the law permits me only certain responsibilities which I am wont to fulfill. Therefore, as I come to you today, you ought to know that I love you. And you should understand that the love that I bear is for the eternal radiance within you. Or you are, in one way, chalices of regeneration, and within there is the great coal from the altars of heaven. And as this chalice is cherished, as the coal is cherished, and fanned into flame by the winds of the Holy Spirit, so the identity of man glows also, for he is no longer then a sleeping coal of transient identity, but he is a magnificent event happening in the world and the universe, where God is and where he is also in the process of becoming more godlike. More God understanding then is given to his soul, and at last his mind is exalted and lifted up out of the banalities of ordinary existence into the strands of holy illumination, where he can bask in the sun of illumination with a sense of welcome in his heart. And in this sense, may I say unto you that the development of the sense of welcome in your heart is one of the greatest means whereby individuals can enhance the glow of God identity for themselves. Individuals who have a desire to push from them all the godlike qualities of the universe, all the great resurgence of God magnificence, quite naturally become ultimately bereft of it. For to him that hath shall more be given, and to him that hath not shall be taken away from him even that which he hath. Is this not then the law? Is this not then the acts of divine grace, giving unto all who are gathering more, greater measure of themselves, and to those who are not gathering, they lose what they have already gathered in those more relevant times when they were guided by a greater star and understood at last the radiance of heaven. But does not the greatest star of all guide you still? Have we changed stars in the middle of the stream? I do not think you have either changed stars or horses in reality, for you are being conveyed or carried across the great density of man's manifestation and field of manifestation into the glow ray of eternal God consciousness. Will you then bear with me as I say unto all that the darkness should go, and the darkness should be burned by the light, because it is not, and because the light is, and because you are light, and because without light you could not find the Christ of your being shining in that darkness which is all around you. It is a way which seemeth right unto a man, the end of which is death. Therefore I say unto all, awaken unto eternal life. Awaken unto the great opportunity that is before you in the harmony of your being as you begin to manifest the Christ victory of your life in all that you do for one another and for humanity. The great resurgence of the Christ power will manifest. And remember these words of the Christ: the light shone in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Will you then understand that the world does not comprehend the light, because its ways are darkness, and in the untowardness of its condition, it regurgitates darkness again and again, and the life opportunities vanish in a puff of the ominousness of life. Will you recognize with me then that this is the creation of man? Now we see the creation of God. He who cannot fail, fails only in the point of human will. And yet he fails not at all, for the magnificence of human will, when properly harnessed to its God direction, as is a billowing sail in the universe that exalts the divine intent and floods the being of man with light and hope and expectancy. No shroud of mortal density this, but the great effulgence of the divine cup of cosmic grace. Will you recognize then that we have always loved you, that we have guided you over the mountains and the plain, over the valleys and the rivers? We have guided your destiny, and we are not just one in reality, for we are many. There are many of us beyond the veil who can step through the veil, who have the power to step through the veil. But then, dear hearts, in one way we are already here. We have stepped through the veil to manifest individually to you, and this also proves to you the reality of our existence. And this is not a fragile gift, one that vanishes in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, but a manifestation of hope that buoys men through the years, until at last they are able to see with a clearer eye, with a clearer vision, not through the fog of mankind's density and the limited lenses of their present perception, but because of cosmic grace, they have at last frozen themselves into the great stream that moves. You understand what I'm speaking about? They have anchored themselves. They have frozen themselves. They have placed themselves there freely, willingly. They have given themselves to God. And therefore the stream moves. It moves forward because the transcendence of God is with men, and the transcendence of God is for men, and the transcendence of the universe was created by God for men, for the manifestation of himself, a home of light and love, a home of beauty and power, a home of God realization. And I say of all of it, it is worth it, in spite of human degradation, in spite of the cup that men have drunk of, which is as the plagues of Revelation. And yet I tell you, as the plagues of Revelation manifest in the physical form, so also the beauty of the cosmic graces of the New Jerusalem, of the holy city, will manifest likewise. And therefore men shall wear a new garment, and they shall understand at last that that garment is the will of God. It is a vestment of cosmic truth. Its strands are woven by men day by day, the holy will of God, the will that buoys them up, the will that exalts in them the best gifts, that leads them as a father leads his children. I come to you then today, and I speak wisely and well. Heed you then the call that I have spoken, and let it not become as a thing lightly cast upon your ears. Let it also be a garment of loveliness, because it is truth. And let the truth of this garment sink down deeply into your hearts, that the reality of God realization come at last with its blessedness into the scope of your being, into the score of the melody of your being, to be rendered then day after day unto men. And now I say unto you, will you understand the great need to finish the work that has begun, to complete it? I say unto you, I speak of the book now long a preparing for humanity. We of the cosmic level demand it of you, and it must be done soon. Will you recognize then with me that all of the opposing forces to this document shall be as a pinch of dust before our eyes, for we have secured a cosmic dispensation from the lords of karma to assist in the bringing forth to mankind of this great gospel of truth unto men, that their hearts may be filled, that their spirits may have new dimensions, that the great storehouse of life become a means whereby men can gather more of the glory of our ray. I have spoken, and it is done. I have spoken, and it is fulfilled. I have spoken, and it shall be. Whether tragic or whether beautiful, circumstances can be controlled. For within the facets of the human mind and consciousness lie far greater power than men dream of. To harness the inner power, then, is the requisite that God demands of every man. In the beginning, unto man was given, and he has implemented it. He has embellished the transfer of the divine gift. But now the time has come when new individuals are upon the scene, mingling also with those who have been here many times before. Circumstances are such that men must show reasonability toward one another. They must understand that our activity requires and demands of life vigilance. Humanity should reckon with vigilance. They should demand it of themselves, they should expect it of one another, and they should be willing to give it. For unless it be given, how can you preserve the various necessary aspects of life which are so valid? We understand today the problems that beset those in high places. We understand today the problems that beset your own President of the United States. We understand the need to be vigilant when all around individuals in high places are those who seek to control them and to exert the pressures of their thoughts upon them. We who have also engaged somewhat in the past in politics understand the necessity of reckoning with these aspects of the human spirit. For nobleness of striving is not only inner, it is also outer. And whereas the kingdom of heaven, which suffered so much violence in this generation, does itself manifest within, it also of necessity should manifest without. And such beauty as humanity can externalize should be forthcoming from the human spirit. And individuals should see that their culture can also become the culture of the world, that their darkness can also become the vanity of the world. And when the despair of all of this is literally dumped upon humanity already overburdened, we are therefore desirous of in some way helping them to carry their burden. For the darkness rests also upon every man proportionately. Those who have greater light are able to carry greater burdens. But nevertheless, the lifting of burdens from the heart of the world is not a tragic circumstance, but a beautiful set of circumstances which will embellish the whole quality of human life and exalt it into its divine virtue. This is the staff of God handed to humanity, that humanity may hold it in their hand and understand and appreciate its value. For appreciation of higher value must come to all, and all must realize that God expects of man the return of that valor which has already been given to them. The purity of consciousness which God has is their own. They have but to ask and they shall receive. Yet men, somehow or other, are caught up with the idea that this is too easy to simply ask and receive, and therefore when the proffered gift is given, they do not understand that it is there, and sometimes fail to accept it or to realize that the transmittal has been made. And because of the divine drama, and because of the various circumstances of karmic patterns of individuals, God does not always stand forth and say unto them, I have already given you the gift, my child. Rather, instead, inwardly, he speaks, but the heart does not understand, and the heart has not opened its own door unto God. And therefore, the requirement for greater life is to understand that God is the great giver to all, and not to feel unworthy of the gift, for the gift is for the divine purpose. The gift is to enhance the quality of the divine life. The gift will purify. The gift will dignify. The gift itself will override subtleties and manifest the beauty of the appearance of the living Christ to all. While darkness then seems to be the garment of the world to be preferred by them, in reality, if they could in their secret heart of hearts consult with one another, they would acknowledge that light is more loved indeed. For light is everywhere abounding, and yet is not everywhere responded to. For individuals countless times have failed to take into account the manifestation of the light and the delight of the light in giving itself to man. Will you then enter in with me into a spirit of acceptance of the greater gift that has been given to your life stream, that you may share with your brethren by more valiant work in the service of the King? Will you understand then that when Christ the King is enthroned within your heart, then a manifestation of his greatness is imparted to the whole world through the gift you have received and acknowledged. You become then an arbiter of other men's destiny, one to whom the dream of God is a reality, one who can embellish the dream, one who can stand fast without being moved by the darkness of the world. They say that they experience an incoming equanimity of spirit, but do they always seem to manifest it? Nay, they do not. And this is because the darkness in themselves momentarily eclipses the light. Now we say, let the light expand. And let the expansion of the light be for the comfort of the souls of men, that they may dream the dreams of God and implement those dreams by the practicality of reality. Let them tie themselves to the Master's consciousness. Let them hold the thought of God for themselves as they have held tenaciously to the thought of the world. For men have very easily accepted the gravitational pull, but who will accept the ascendant pull? Who will understand that they are being raised? Who will accept the higher consciousness? The more swiftly that you accept it, the more swiftly humanity will. And in one sense of the word, you are then, as I have said, the arbiters of the destiny of men. To you is given the chalice. To you is given the great elixir of life. To you is given the opportunity to drink. To you is given the opportunity to expand. Will you do it? Will you accept me as I speak to you today? Will you accept the validity of my coming? Will you accept the coming of the great ones into the world arena? To mold and remold, to make and remake men over again, that they may be shaped in the cosmic vision, and not entirely in the way of the world. Oh, I know full well that you have often lamented how the infiltration of darkness comes about, how just when you strive the more deeply and dearly to do the will of God, it seems that the will of God cannot be done because outer sources of thought and feeling intrude themselves. Well, let me tell you that one day this will not be, and one day it has not been for all. For all who have overcome have come to that cusp of experience where they have stood between the dark and the daylight. Let them now realize and understand that by and by can be now. They need not wait for it. They can transmute today. The power of valor is theirs and accomplishment. But there are imponderables in the human nature. Oh, we recognize this full well. But we expect a summoning of the will, a summoning of the election, as Moria would call it, unto man that will bring about a greater choosing of reality and a lesser choosing of the things that are so unreal in life. I thank you. Sons and daughters of my light, I come to you tonight that you may be in greater measure aware of my strength as golden beams reaching out into the world order and establishing a new kingdom. I come to transmute. I come to educate. I come to bring forth a greater sense of awareness about the blazing noontide of my reality in you all, that you may not only recognize it, but be a part of it, for you are already a salient part of myself, and know it not, in that fullness of degree which would bring to your soul the understanding of both the hardness and the softness of conditions. Then you would be able to recognize appropriately all conditions as belonging unto the evolution of a planet. The evolution of selfhood, the development of true understanding, and the mastery of all outer conditions. Humanity today suffer defeat because of their sense of failure, because of the senses which they have developed and the conditioned responses which are so much a part of themselves. They have made it a part of themselves. Originally, we brought forth abundance because we knew we could. Individuals understood that. Now, humanity, weak, sickly, and supine, remain content with a paltry mass of outer world substance, an accumulation of form and trinkets, while the great stability of the soul goes begging in God's name. Do you understand that? And I speak directly now to Helios, to Vesta, to Alpha, to Omega, yea, to myself, to my divine consort, and to Alpha and Omega. I speak directly because I want it understood that our prayer is for the unfoldment of those God qualities which humanity lacks. Let us now then ask you all to enter with me into that great solemn moment of invoking the reality of life from the heart of God. Do you understand that when we speak of God, we speak of His allness? And although we have received the allness of God, yet we recognize our own little parts, our own individual roles, for the universes are almost without end, in the sense that the universe indeed is expanding to allow all individuals to have a proper role in the cosmic field of adventure. You have heard it said, be a god of your own world. You have heard it said that one day you will master a solar system as easily as you now wrestle with a small problem. Let me tell you, in order to make this possible, the number of souls upon this planet should understand the reason for creative life constantly moving forward in the scheme of divine desire into that limitless or seemingly limitless manifestation of space that creates worlds without end. Worlds without end! Do you understand the meaning of that phrase? Man limited cannot understand it. Man unlimited can understand it. Worlds without end, turning in space, means that you, as your evolution is developed, can be in the hierarchical scheme given not only a grand adventure, but also a grand opportunity. I want to tell you something tonight very dear to me. I want to tell you that 1,000,000 years from now, You would not even shake your own hand because you would not wish to contaminate yourself. Do you understand the meaning of that? The word may seem to be hard. It is not intended to be so. For it is one of the great cosmic facts. Individuals making the grand adventure, the marvelous leap into 1,000,000 years of spiritual evolution, would not wish to contaminate themselves with their present state of manifestation. And do you know something else? Even the ascended masters have also said this. They have recognized this. When they have just made their ascension, they are at a pinnacle of beginningness that leads to the marvelous manifestation of true reality, the true consummation of identity, a true state of cosmic progress. And this is different because it is ongoingness according to cosmic law. You have long recognized that life has purpose. You have long recognized that life has meaning. But meaning and purpose can be very different. For you should understand that purpose is the intent of the Godhead. Meaning, then, is that quality which you bring forth in your lives, giving new meaning to your lives, which has the freedom and latitude of expression that allows it to take a different course than we have planned for the individual according to the dictates of himself. Do you know what this means? It means that true freedom has always existed in the soul, and we would not bind any, but allow that freedom of expression which we are to evolve in higher octaves and in lower. We desire this, and yet we provide a greater measure of cosmic education to the souls and to humanity so that they can gain greater knowledge and make their choices from the sphere of greater knowledge rather than from a limited state of consciousness where they do not yet understand the meaning of life. I have spoken, and I have spoken to each and every one of you, for life is an ongoing condition. You have asked me to speak. You have invited me with your holy Christ selves. You have come here to hear our words of advice to a planet. If we can, as the hierarchy demands, succeed in stopping wars, future wars upon the planet, if we can succeed in advising humanity that they should understand the meaning of life in far greater measure than they currently do, if we can succeed in lowering into the consciousness of the race the high God adventure which we desire to lower, it will make its impact upon humanity. And I assure you that that impact will be very great indeed, far greater than if individuals who did not have our knowledge themselves elected to assist their fellow men. Do you see then why we ask you to accept our thought? It is solely because we understand facts that you have not yet discovered. We have a different consciousness than you have because we have developed it. We are willing to share it with you, and this is a great boon to those who recognize it. Will you see with me now the meaning of life as I have mentioned it? Certainly, there are outer conditions we expect you from time to alter. Certainly, there are conditions you want altered. Well then, beloved hearts, if we agree, then let us start the process of alteration. Let us not be afraid of that upset that comes to individuals because they are asked to stop a certain action. Do not mind or feel that you are under pressure. You have elected to choose an avant-garde way of life. You have elected to proceed with that course which we have set before you. Quite naturally, then, you will understand a greater measure of life's mysteries than your fellow men. The reason that they sometimes choose to persecute you is twofold. In other words, they themselves are misdirected by the dark powers of this planet, and they do not understand themselves properly. Not understanding themselves properly, they choose limited spheres of occupation. They elect designs that are themselves inadequate to our purposes. We do not intend to change our operation. We have no intention of once again descending to the field of earth for the purposes of taking embodiment. Our intention, now that we ourselves ensoul the luminous orb you call the sun, is to recognize the great fires of the sun as providing warmth, heat, and spiritual illumination to humanity simultaneously. Why is this so? Let me tell you why. First of all, you have the outer sun, which warms and vivifies the earth. It expresses to the earth our glory. It expresses to the earth the continuation of life, the awakening and the strength for which life calls. For life is a sponge, and it seeks to soak up our energy, to utilize it according to all sorts of decrees. All sorts of decrees, all sorts of desires, all sorts of fulfillment. For the magnetic flux of the earth's field is also actually fed by the energy which we are sending forth. But men should not limit us to express in a physical way. We desire to express in a spiritual way, and so we do. And therefore, in addition to the outer rays of the sun, to the outer radiance of the sun, we manifest a quality that is not commonly known upon this planetary body. And what is that quality? It is the quality of the spiritual sun, the quality of the sun behind the sun. It is the radii of your souls. It is the foci of sustainment to humanity. It is the ongoingness of cosmic progress, and you may, if you choose to do so, call these powers cosmic rays, for they are energetic and energizing. They are inspirational and inspiring. They have all of the qualities of harmony and of cosmic music to the soul. They are the fruit of the divine vine, and we are the godparents of this system of worlds. Beloved Vesta is also waiting to speak to you, and I have put myself first at her request, though she represents the mother of the world. Aiva, the divine mother, the cult of the mother as you have called it, the understanding of the Ancient of Days, yes, and of the origin of a solar system, one among many. The origin of the universe, known to you in part, is actually the precious secret of beloved Alpha and Omega. I do not choose to discuss origins, for I am more interested now in discussing goals. And what is your goal? What have you chosen for yourself? Well, be willing, precious ones, if you will, to accept the pressure of the God from the sun. If it seems to be a pressure, let me tell you that it is not intended so to be. It is the matter of educating the individual heart, and the individual heart must be God-taught. The individual heart must be God-illumined. The individual heart must be flooded with light, because the individual heart is most precious to us. You would not pin your life on one word or one outer condition, would you? Well then, precious ones, pin it on all of our words. For you should understand the divine synthesis of our speaking, for we speak from the heart. And the desire of our heart is also to fulfill the higher desire of yours. Outer forms may change, outer forms may fade, You may become absorbed in part by our very words. And when that moment occurs, you will not mind it at all, for your consciousness will make that measure of cosmic progress that permits the blessed soul of man to at last breathe the air of cosmic freedom. And after all, this is the desire of God. It should be yours also, to go on, to expand, to progress, and to attain. And the beauty of it all is that truly we go on, Alpha and Omega go on, and there is an ongoingness about the entire universe in its foreverness that is to be expected. In the world of form, dealing with outer theories and outer theorems, you may have the idea that is different than this, for you think in terms of human limitation. Let me tell you, we do not. We do not think in the terms of human limitation, but we do understand human limitation because we have ourselves, in the far, far distant past, also worn various forms and manifested them in our days. And now our days are ongoing. Now our days are higher days, days of greater beauty and attainment, and the responsibility for a planet, but not only for a planet, but for the development, for the evolution of a solar system. Do you understand what this means? Those of you who have actually had the privilege of observing the curvature of the earth may have a little idea what it means, for as you descend through the atmosphere, you find myriad individuals and streams of life here and there upon the landed surface of the earth. They are interesting to you, and you would find that if you could view the earth from outer space at greater distance, such as the astronauts did, you would have again a different view of the very earth upon which you live. When you go out into interstellar space and have what we will call a cosmic view of the world, then it is still greater. And when at last you turn the blessedness of your attention upon other worlds and to the entire planetary chain, then at last you understand that the word planetary chain means that we and nature have conspired to actually place in orbit the various manifestations of far-flung worlds for a cosmic purpose, and to develop in this spatial wonder the various evolutions of the entire solar system, and you are only one planetary body. Now there are those who actually think that they can limit other planetary bodies by their discovery, simply because they did not find a man in the moon. They have decided that no one has ever lived upon the moon, that the moon is indeed devoid of life. Some of them have said that it is too hot for life to exist upon Venus. Little do they understand the purposes of life and the manifestation of life. We are able, even upon this earth, to create what is known as simultaneous creation. This means that upon this planetary body, an entire world can exist independent of you. Then, blessed ones, an entire world may be well going on around you, and I think it best at this time that I preserve that secret. Do you understand why? Because you have enough problems with your own world without bothering yourself about the problems of another world interpenetrating it. I want you to understand then that all of this responsibility is ours, and we are willing to discharge it because we have very wise overseers. We have those among the ascended masters who recognize responsibility for various aspects of life, and in truth there are various vectors, various sectors, regions, or what have you, on this planetary body and in the solar system and the regions of far-off space. So that the governing of space is not as difficult as you have imagined. We have had in the past a great deal more difficulty in governing the evolutions of the planet on which you now live. Truly, men have said that this is a charnel house of destruction, and that conditions upon the earth are not to their liking. Let me truly verify the fact that this planet at the present time is in a state of evolution where, while it does indeed have a greater manifestation of a higher outer world technology, it does indeed lack in the development of that soul consciousness which mankind expect it to have, because of the interest so many masters have actually shown in the evolutions of this planet. And we say to you tonight, what is wrong with you? Wake up in God's name. Understand that the hour has come when the planet should wake up, or certainly face that measure of destruction and vulnerability which would then be its lot. Do you understand the meaning of my words? I mean that outer world conditions can worsen to the point where individuals upon this planet will no longer find an outer planetary home on which to live, because we will find a cosmic edict issued whereby the very mountains will erupt and change their places as in ancient days, and the civilizations will indeed be destroyed and engulfed by the conditions evoked upon mankind by their own sorcery. Will you then recognize the need to flood this world with the Christ consciousness, with the dawn of a new civilization, the dawn of a new age taking shape right within the present age? Will you recognize and understand with me that I expect mankind, as Saint Germain does, to reinforce the bastions of this world with the powers of the spiritual world, so that the spiritual world will indeed come into its own, and the reign of righteousness between souls upon this planetary body will become an actuality, and humanity will not swell the ego as they have done and continually seek to feed it, while they are losing the precious souls which we gave unto them for the purposes of spiritual development. I want you to understand that the powers of heaven expect mankind now, with all of the blessedness that has been brought forth in the past, to appropriate to a greater measure the treasures which they have upon this planetary body, and to prevent the destruction of the ages by the proper constructive attitudes that will automatically, through the training they will give to their children from an early beginning, create an entirely different pattern upon this planetary body than they have had before. For today, humanity are constantly drenched by psychic substance from all around them. Why does this take place? Why are there astral hordes to begin with? Because humanity have invoked them. They have used books on black magic and sorcery to perpetuate these manifestations upon the planetary body, and they are lacking in love. Again and again, they have destroyed civilizations, while self-love seems to be their principal preoccupation. Let me then tonight come to you with the knowledge that the acts that they are doing are very dire indeed, for they are creating the rumblings of awful forebodings upon the planetary body, which for a long time we have held back because of various conditions invoked by ascended master students. Do you understand then that if humanity keep on doing the wrong things upon this planetary body and running riot toward destruction, they will bring upon themselves the awful destruction of nature which has been foretold? Now we do not want to see this done, and we have sought to stop it wherever possible. We caused the diversion of a frightful earthquake that was intended to literally rip the West Coast to pieces long ago by diverting it to Alaska at a specific time, because there were less people there, and because it was an act of mercy in reality for the planetary body. For otherwise the most enormous destruction would have taken place here, even on the West Coast and in other parts of the world. Do you understand that? Do you realize that this diversion has again and again been an act of mercy? Yet the question has often been asked, is it true mercy? to give mankind this form of mercy and let them continue to run riot. We will expect you to understand how Abraham of old interceded for the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah to be stayed, but at last it became a necessity because of the wickedness of the people. We do not want a repetition of this action. We do not want the planetary body to suffer any form of rupture or destruction. But when mankind, by violence, continually turn race against race, people against people, nation against nation, and continue to master what they have called the new arts of war, then do you see that this manipulation of the principles of life is most destructive indeed. For many individuals suffer to a far greater degree than you realize when these conditions occur. It may mean limited prosperity for some because the munition makers continue to grow rich. But we assure you that the planetary destruction is imminent by man. And then, precious ones of the light, the Mideast crisis looms before humanity. Let all understand then that there is a need to continue that spiritual work which you have begun, which has been so successful in the past in staying these outer conditions from actually manifesting. But you should understand the enormity of these conditions. You should understand that the bag is very big, that the forces within the bag are swelling from time to time as humanity continue to feed them. You should understand that they may erupt at any time with what we may almost term a volcanic action. Individuals should know this. They should understand this. They should recognize that it has happened in the past, that it can happen again. They should realize the acts of mercy that have stated, and know and understand that they should follow all of the Master's teachings and should do it to the best degree they are capable of, because then there is hope for the world in the light which we bring to the world. For the light must not remain just the physical light which permits men to eat, to sleep, to drink, to marry, to give in marriage, and do all those things which individuals do. Let me explain to you that there must become a state of progress here upon this earth if society is to preserve itself intact. Otherwise, humanity would destroy itself. In fact, already this would have been a fait accompli had it not been instead an act of mercy, because mercy took preeminence. Yet mercy is always affected by the limitations that mankind actually put upon it. Do you understand that? Do you understand that humanity have actually interceded for each other? But do you also understand that there are many depraved souls upon the planet who probably may not listen at all to the teachings of the light? You must learn the arts of going on and on until you reach those who do listen, and thus reinforce the forces of light until the time comes when at last you may enter into a higher joy of your Lord. This is my desire. This is the message I bring to you, that while the time may seem long, the time may also be shortened, because humanity themselves through inattention will do it. I want you to understand the power you wield. I want you to understand the power of your intercession. But I also want you to understand the power that the world wields by its continual action to ignore simply because it does not know, to ignore simply because it does not understand ascended master law. It does not understand ascended master love. It does not understand ascended master reality. And so the spreading of the teaching is vital to this planet. It is not a matter of perpetuating an organization. It is a matter of a planetary body surviving the particular phase of darkness through which it is currently moving, which results in wars, in violence, in destruction, and in bloodshed in almost an unparalleled manner. Now we are concerned with this, for we are interested in the opportunity the tiny babe seeks when he first takes embodiment upon this planetary body. He comes here to this planetary body with hope. He comes here with a hope that he may develop spiritually. He comes here with a hope that he may at last know the great freedom of life, to breathe and to fly, to be a real person, to reach out his consciousness, to refine it, and to make it like the sun shining in his strength. I have come to you tonight with an admonishment. There is much more that I could tell you, but I think that some of these answers are already in yourself. Therefore, I want you to understand that recognizing this and the great economy of life, I desire instead to place a nugget of myself in the hands of your spiritual body. And so, the beautiful golden substance from our octave is radiating a special radiation and emanation at this present moment, and all of you will receive it from the hand of beloved Vesta as she speaks to you. Do you understand then that I have given you my love, and that it shall become a tangible manifestation of golden precipitated sunlight in your own hearts to assist you in your spiritual evolution and in developing that force field which is as close to that force field which I wear about my own manifestation, the manifesting body which I wear from time to time here upon the planetary body and in other parts of the universe. You should recognize the state of your consciousness. It's stepping up right now. It's stepping up right now. It's stepping up right now. And I intend to keep the process going for so long as you can sustain it. And then I want you to know from now on, every day, if you will call to me, I will give you the opportunity of stepping it up still higher and increasing the golden mind body of the Christ consciousness within the force field of yourself. And I will assist you in the development of that body, in the drawing forth from it of more of myself, until at last you are ascended in the light and free. I thank you. ladies and gentlemen of great light, I come to you tonight after the fashion of the times, to acquire nothing, to bring to you all that I can of the depth of the wisdom of God and that God-feeling which is our delight. Sternness may be the lot of a few of the ascended masters, and they have succeeded by it in developing a great awareness of God and the willingness to relinquish the human. God delight, holy wisdom, and the fruit of divine geometrizing has been our forte, for we have understood through the years the need to work on the inner, the need to work with a solar luminosity in the consciousness of men. And so we have engaged in that for the express purpose of directing the soul in its upward course, of showing forth to man the great tenets of freedom as a living, breathing stream of reality from higher octaves. Some among mankind have not understood us in our course. They have decided that we are perhaps a part of the Antichrist, or of the darkness, or of the despair of themselves. We understand how human nature is, how individuals from time to time will demean us. We recall, not with any necessary fondness, that day when individuals followed us wherever we went, around the great nation of France and in Europe, and they proclaimed themselves as ourselves. Impostors were they, deceitful, and seeking to bask in a reflective light. They will have their reward, yet verily one of these days they will come directly to the place where they will be one of us. But in the meantime they must follow the karmic course until such a time as their own individualized karma has been fulfilled. I do not say that you should express great pity for them, for they have carried with them any number of souls in a downward trend. We are concerned then with those who are lifting up, and the great battle of life, the struggle which manifests in the world of form. We recall with affection how many lovely mothers and fathers are upon the planetary body, whose every consideration is for their children, to produce the best possible children, to produce the very best possible consciousness, to develop that consciousness, and seeking with all their hearts to give to their children the highest gifts not only of themselves, but also of divine love and grace. Yet somewhere along the line, because of the circumstances of the world's thought, they have actually not been instructed in the teachings which are supreme, which are pure, which are beautiful, which are easy to be entreated. Will you understand with me then that life is not all a matter of intent, for some individuals simply, with the very best intents, make the best mistakes. We want you to understand that we are concerned not at all with the problems or foibles of mankind. This trivia may from time to time have caused humanity to falter in their grasp of the great cosmic law. But as far as we are concerned, we are interested primarily in working with those advanced devotees of the Spirit who believe in our existence, who are our friends, who understand the need to implement the forces of freedom and to magnetize from God all of His great delight on behalf of the cause of freedom and for the adventure of mankind in those things that are of necessity spiritual in nature. However, in the world today, in the world of form, there are many who do not understand the high road of cosmic adventure. They have chosen instead to take the low road of simple expression according to the dictates of circumstances and experiences of others. They seem content with their lot, and the tendency for many would be to say, let them go, for they are happy and content. They do not seem to have any sense of struggle. And then we come along, reminiscent of the words of Jesus, when he said, I came not to send peace upon earth, but a sword. and we unseat them from their particular mood of ignorance of the great laws of karma, of re-embodiment, of the various aspects that develop the higher nature of man and propel him Godward. Suddenly we unseat them. We bring them to a state of consciousness where they are no longer content with the particular dogmas which for so long were a pacifier to their nature. Now we stir them up. We cause them to realize that conditions within themselves are not all that they would desire. And through this discontent, we actually foster a search for God. And out of that search, which sometimes people have felt that truly we are rogues, we continue to work for mankind so that humanity will produce for himself every good and perfect gift. Is this wrong? We do not think so. And therefore our teachings go abroad in the world of form, sometimes poorly presented, and then again very accurately portraying to humanity that the cosmic picture that we bring forth is one for every man. From time to time, individuals find difficulty in accepting all of the aspects of the great cosmic beings, the lords of karma, the existence of those things they have not yet heard of, and they are willing to return from time to time to the old bromides which have kept them for so long satisfied, contented, and out to pasture. Now, if I seem to be a bit cynical in this, let me say that many among humanity have been far too long in one place in life without advancing. They marry, they are given in marriage, they eat, they drink, they sleep, and they do all the things which mankind does, yet they do not anything whatsoever that is spiritual in nature except to gaze. They continue to gaze from time to time upon what they term spiritual phenomena, or in some cases even spiritualistic phenomena. And they are curious people, always searching for something different without ever understanding the great flood tide of reality that is all around them. The natural order of the divine, so easy to discover, is very difficult for many, because there are so many forces, so many flood tides in the world that actually exist for the purpose of creating confusion in the minds of men. And the elements of confusion are to be found everywhere, for a purpose, of course, to deceive humanity, to keep them bound, to prevent the manifestation of freedom. We who are of the ascended master's level are concerned with the developing in man of the great tides of true cosmic freedom, as opposed to those pseudo-ideas which will never give humanity the freedom for which they seek. I have come to you tonight, however, for a purpose, and that purpose is the advancing of all of you just a step higher in the cosmic peerage, that you should understand that heaven also will naturally respond to the search that man makes for him. When you come together here, in patience possessing your souls, yearning for the development of God ideals, understanding the realities in part, and patiently waiting for greater degrees to descend upon you, you are opening the door not to shadow or darkness, but to greater light. And so greater light shall come to you. But that light is actually an inward jewel. It is the movement of the spirit of man toward a higher understanding of himself. And all should understand that the spirit first moves, and then the flesh, the mind, the other aspects of man follow. Do you see how this works, precious ones of the light? First, the spirit moves, I have said. Then the other aspects follow. It is very important, then, to actually discover the method of motivating yourself according to spiritual goals, to recognize that as you choose the right goals, so you impel the formation of the right ideas in your consciousness. You attune with the right people at the higher levels, those who are dedicated already to the formation in you of the living Christ and the formation of the Christ consciousness. These blessed individuals understand what is going to happen to you as the result of accepting the Christ consciousness. When individuals think of a remote and blessed Jesus in a far-off heaven, they may produce a small manifestation of this blessed Jesus, of this blessed far-off heaven. But when the idea of the kingdom of heaven within themselves finally dawns upon them, then you see God is no longer removed to a remote place, and they are able to make that vital contact which will cause them literally to leap for joy, because they recognize the facets of God as they are able to appear as divine potential within themselves. Men and women want more of God. They want to make a better world. However, there is a great danger in the human psyche which we would like to unseat, and this is the danger of humanity's aspects toward sympathy, which is in no way to be compared with compassion. For sympathy with fallen man, with those who are experiencing various conditions of shadow or darkness, is not our intent. We have never been in sympathy with the human, for we understand how the pull of sympathy is also a pull of the psychic world, how it produces a sense of struggle, and that struggle serves to unseat man at the very moment of his victory. Instead, we substitute the ideal of compassion because we know it is the recognition of human problems without giving any power to them. When men understand this law governing compassion and sympathy, they are able to correctly enfold themselves with the divine grace which I am, which they are, and which all of heaven is sternly working for. I have used the word sternly because it applies in a way very appropriately to the idea I seek to convey. Heaven itself may smile, but it has a level of austerity for a purpose. After all, I doubt very much if any of you would laugh in most cases at your mother's funeral. Yet you must understand that there is a time to laugh, a time to cry, a time to plant, a time to build, a time to tear down. All who understand our message will recognize that man, by going through the hoop of human foibles, is literally jumping at the command not of the magician, but of the circus performer, who stands there hat in hand and causes people to act exactly as they are expected to act under a given condition. But the students of the light have been taught the law, and the law of God is the law of application. We want all to understand then that regardless what conditions may come to you, that we understand those outer conditions, but we refuse to engage our energies in the continual creation of a condition which will not produce the best gifts for yourself. For we understand the true meaning of love, not to make a fetish of humanity or of our students, but to create in them a desire for life and an understanding of life, that they may be free from the various binding devices used by the brothers of the shadow. In this connection, let us make clear that all devices that smack of black magic or of darkness or shadow are indeed an anathema to us. We recognize that humanity are tempted by them, a la the Faustian legend, but they should understand that modern man should not in reality accept the old Middle Age idea of Mephistopheles, of the darker powers. You ought by now to have outgrown them and to understand that the benign aspects of being are what you should seek to create and live in. For then creation itself will dance for joy, because the abundant life will manifest freely in all. Now if at first you do not succeed in the blessed ritual of alchemy, the alchemy of self, do not ever be discouraged. After all, many years have passed, in some cases aeons of time, in other cases many embodiments, during which you have been engaged from time to time in various practices that actually do not encourage the deity, the angelic host, the ascended masters, or the cosmic beings to come into your world and manifest. Then suddenly you decide that you will take a turn for the right. And when you do, you expect all of heaven to immediately follow suit. Let me make clear to you that grace itself does not know for sure whether you are actually acting for real. For human tendencies are often so vacillating that heaven looks at you when you start a turn for the right to see whether or not the energies which you are demanding from heaven are indeed deserved by you, because you have indicated to heaven that you are sternly or austerely interested in the various aspects of cosmic life. When you do, then the karmic board stands ready to intensify the effort which you have made, and to provide you with a more than ordinary impetus toward life and light. I want tonight all of the students to understand that we are creatures of grace, and we expect our students to be also. When we have these expectations of greater application of the law, it is because we are not interested in a hindrance of humanity. We are interested instead in real progress. And real progress cannot ensue simply because man wants it to be so. It comes about only because individuals will practice the presence of God and see that it becomes an active portion of their life. Eventually, the great magnet will become the allness of your life, but it has many aspects when rightly understood, and provides for the infiltration of so much good that I doubt whether most of you could actually harness that good at the present hour, but instead would find such an effervescence occurring in your aura that you would seldom be content to actually outpicture those right gifts which you were given in a rightful manner. Instead, sometimes you would be tempted by the very light you would draw to do those things which are not proper or correct in the eyes of heaven at all. Let us then amplify in you the desire to do right, and let us intensify that precious gift in you, because it will direct the whole world to a higher goal. When I say to you, it will direct the whole world, some of you may be somewhat askance, for at first you will say, how can so much be expected of me? Well then, after all, are you not teeth in the cosmic gears? Are you not also causing your energies to be engaged with cosmic light? Well, when men invoke me, I come. And when I come into manifestation, I expect results. I do not come forth in order to assist humanity to do evil. There is already too much a sense of duality of good and evil in the world. I come forth, as every ascended being does, in order to implement the forces of light and correction. And blessed ones, do not be excited because men are given admonishments from time to time toward correction. After all, what is the greatest gift but true parenthood? And I have stood as sponsor at inner levels for many of you, seeking to assure you a recognition at the courts of heaven, when I have more or less put myself on the line, for far more than an earring. I want you to understand that such gifts come by us very difficultly indeed. For we ourselves have no attachment whatsoever to outer conditions. Some fancy us to be vain in our imaginations, or simply dripping with jewels or precious gifts. Let me make clear to you that each manifestation costs us, that each manifestation costs everyone, for the economy of the universe is geared in no other way. Certain values are fixed on various aspects of life, and when men draw these forth, they are expected to pay for them because they are truly not gifts without price, but gifts with price tags upon them. I am not speaking of physical money or of outer conditions. I am speaking of the cost to a man's soul to produce a phenomenal manifestation. Let all understand then that the gift of mastery is far more than the attributes of mastery. It is also the responsibility of mastery. And therefore, as your aspirations are fulfilled, recognize that you are also the recipient of great expectations from God. And this is quite natural, for we who are of the ascended host, and they who are above us, expect that those who are our chelas will recognize and understand that they are not simply creatures whom we have endowed with a portion of our power, or who have entered into some portion of their own power, that they might more or less exhibit that power before humanity for some vainglorious display. Instead, the correct use of power is always for the divine majesty and for the implementation of cosmic good upon earth. Consider for a moment the lilies of the field. Yes, they do not toil. Yes, they do not spin. They seem to be simple manifestations of nature, but all of them are pearls of great price, for they are gifts given to humanity for the joy of the eye, for the joy and delight of the senses. Yet they are precious manifestations of nature itself, paid for by elemental life, and fully ratified by the angelic host. For the flowers of the Spirit are also like the flowers of the flesh that manifest before the eye. The flowers of the Spirit, even though they be an immortal, are given to humanity in order to garnish mankind with the greatest sense of beauty and the realization of his accomplishment and potential. They are intended to direct into the consciousness of man an idea of purification, an idea of cups of consciousness, an idea of man as a vessel seeking to be filled, now filled. And when I come to you, I also can be somewhat of a hard taskmaster. Some of you have thought of me as being absolutely without that form of discipline. I want you to know that discipline is also an aspect of my life, for without discipline I would never have attained. And without discipline, I do not think that you will attain very easily either. Will you understand exactly what I am saying? I am recommending to you the discipline of Serapis Bey, the discipline of Master Moria, and even the discipline of a Mark or Elizabeth. For you should understand clearly that when the gift of discipline is given to man, it is for his cosmic discipleship. And when a speech is given to humanity, it is given to humanity in order to assist him in the grand adventure of becoming truly an assistant to others. Every jot, every tittle of the law shall be fulfilled, Jesus said. Well then, beloved hearts of light, if it will be fulfilled, certainly you ought to pay heed to every word that we speak and not become bored or sleepy. You should understand that the words we speak are rarities of the cosmos, flowers of the Spirit, and the transmission from higher octaves of our thoughts about man. Given for a purpose, they seek indeed to weed out those conditions amongst you which are not fruitful, and to produce a sense in you of becoming a very real part of the universe. May I increase the heat in the room? I do it for the sake of transmutation. I desire at this moment to literally melt out of you some of the naughtiness and superfluity of naughtiness referred to in some cases by the great saints who were followers of Jesus 2,000 years ago. Precious ones of the light, this transmutative effort on our part is for the development in you of greater strength, greater power, and greater potential in your spiritual goals. You should understand that I will do this only temporarily, and then suddenly I will say, let it be cool, and all at once we will create the condition of coolness and gentleness and sweetness and the perfumes of the Spirit and the perfumes of delight and the realization that after all, God is everywhere, and certainly this includes in your mind. If God is in your mind, then why not bear the fruit of his endeavor there? Why not bear it by changing all of the conditions you do not want? Precious hearts of light, one of the great problems that sometimes literally bothers heaven is the fact that we will clearly define a certain instance for humanity. And when we define it, we expect that people will understand it because we usually know how to speak the King's English. But humanity will look at it, they will listen to it, and then they will start the process of twisting it as an excuse for their not doing the very thing we asked them to do. Do you see? We want you to understand then that this is never our intent, that man should misappropriate or twist our words. Sometimes after having had a dictation such as this one before humanity, we gather together in a little cosmic room and we go over the dictations point by point, and we say to one another, yes, I think that we would have better reached humanity by saying it this way. So I want you to understand that even at our level of thought and feeling, there is a cosmic effort on behalf of humanity, and that effort is a very real one indeed. It is not actually a haphazard gathering of concepts and then dumping them literally upon the consciousness of mankind. It is a manifestation of great cosmic strength and cosmic wisdom. We sometimes spend in the spiritual realm as long as what amounts to 12 years of your time producing a speech that will last 30 or 40 minutes. Do you understand then what it means to actually enter the force field of the cosmos, the realm of timelessness, and then utilize the great power of God, faithfully working and serving to create a condition only to have individuals not realize the great potency which we are distilling for them and manifesting for them as the chemicalization or the spiritual alchemy that actually produces the fruit of God realization in all. The time has come when you should put it to use. And we expect then that there will be a tremendous outreach into the world of form, into the student body, and throughout the world order as we begin the process of developing in you a greater awareness of ourselves as real beings. Somehow along the line, there has been created from time to time the idea that we are not real people, that simply because we have ascended, that we have more or less forgotten humanity. Well, does it look like we have forgotten you when we spend 14 years of our effort to create a 3/4 of an hour speech or a half-hour speech? I think not. Let men then understand that all of this endeavor on behalf of humanity must be balanced by cosmic law, by an equal effort from your level. Well then, do you understand that I expect something of you? I expect an action that will actually develop the God consciousness in thousands and millions of people, for they themselves are waiting patiently in the wings of life for the manifestation of greater reality and less density. But at the present hour, humanity is so much interested in using banal music as a means of developing the astral qualities of life that they are actually committing suicide in many cases in high places simply because they find that the forces create such a confluence of naughtiness that they cannot stand the pressures brought to bear upon them, and they are victims of an astral plot and an astral horror which produces the awful condition of suicide. Today you experience this in the rock and roll field, where some of the great stars are literally passing away because of this condition I have aforementioned. Will you understand then that I expect an entirely different situation in connection with the students of light? I expect the students of light to live as long as they can, as happily as they can, as wisely as they can, and truly become adherents to our cosmic goals. After all, what is the purpose of giving mankind life except to engage in the divine adventure so that he can produce the miracle of that adventure everywhere he goes? He is expected to serve according to the best talents which are given to him. He is expected to use those talents on behalf of the light and to develop the God consciousness in others. It is not enough simply for individuals to be given some quality of God themselves, that they may enjoy it, some manifestation of the fruit of the Spirit. I want you to understand that when we were in physical embodiment, we were also given these talents, and we used them for the glory of God and for the development in mankind in the order then apparent in the world. And often in the invisible realm did we function to create a condition of divine virtue. Now we have come forth, stepped forth literally almost through the veil, to create in you a consciousness of ourselves at inner levels, so that we could develop the realities of God in you for the express purpose of helping mankind. Well, do you think then that we expect to stand idly by and watch while the karmic scales are literally ignored? I assure you we do not. And therefore my recommendation is that every child of God shall be called to a special account. Oh, you didn't think I would say that. You expected me to say, I have been very kind to you through the years, and I have always come to you with this or that great blessing of life, and I have created it, and I have even tonight created it. Yet at the same time, the hour of accountability is at hand on behalf of the students of the light, and the hour demands its own response. Will you then recognize that humanity are waiting? As I have said before, they are literally demanding assistance in the understanding of the great cosmic laws. They have an experience which is literally a vibrancy in reverse. And they are often in the doldrums. They are often in the misery of experience that I do not even care to dwell upon. They often find themselves thinking that they are nothing, when after all, are they not equal to ourselves, truly in potential, for God made them all. Truly God made you. Yet most of you are not capable of standing before humanity and expressing yourself as I do, nor are you capable of expressing the power I wield. Yet you have it. Do you understand? I expect the development in the forthcoming year of a great deal of reality on behalf of the student body. We have talked it over at inner levels, and we have said to one another I believe that men and women need more responsibility. They have asked for more power, so we are going to gear the power to the responsibility. As they manifest more sense of responsibility, we will give them more power, and we will see to it that it is properly used. Over the years, the students have simply lifted up their hands and they have said, St. Germain, manifest here. And we have done it. We have created all kinds of outer conditions of benefit to them. We have found them parking places. We have also created many conditions of joy for them from time to time, and they have more or less used us and said, well, it is a wonderful thing to be an ascended master student because we can fulfill all of our desires. And somehow or other, when they felt like it, they have entered into silly squabbles with one another, and they have actually expressed very badly. So you see tonight, I want all of this stopped. I want you instead to start seriously thinking about yourselves and your karmic responsibility in this octave. Then consider it also in ours. For one day you'll be coming up the chute, literally finding yourselves in our octave. And when you arrive there, I expect to be able to greet you and to drop a mantle on your shoulders far greater than you now wear. Well, if you don't accept the responsibility that you now have, how can you expect that mantle to ever be dropped? In reality, you simply delude yourself, do you see? You tell yourself, well, at the end of this embodiment, I will comfortably make my ascension. And this is almost a state of wiseness in your own conceits. For you do not understand that the action that really propels man Godward is very valiant indeed. Yet many of you have engaged in this in part, but it is simply not enough. And so tonight, I have been told by the karmic lords, and we have discussed it at length, that you must be given this message because it is a fiat, a mandate from heaven to create a greater dent in the atmosphere of this very planetary body. How can you create it? Because you always depend upon us. Now you must depend upon yourself, and of course we will answer your responses in many cases. But you have to keep those responses going, and you have to also do many things to attract the attention of humanity to their own great needs. You have to change the world for God. The world will not change itself, and you cannot expect these people to change it because they do not understand the laws that you understand, and therefore I am depending upon you. Thank you, and good evening.